Good morning. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our home. It's a little bit blustery out there and wind blowing and raining, and so can't be outside. And so I decided to do things from the comfort of my living room. Deanne Fine, welcome. Jan Akins, I saw you this morning. James and Kathy Fuente, Lori Agassi, Mike and Joe Stromberg, I see you all. Good morning. Wendy and Jeremy, good morning to you. Welcome. Let's see who else is arriving. Barbara Richardson, good morning to you. There's my mom. Good morning. Welcome, everybody. Melinda Villarreal, good morning. Carmen Lego, good morning. So I don't normally have all these lights on in my house this early in the morning, but I needed some extra light so we could do this video. My normal morning routine is right in this space, and in the quiet of the morning, drinking coffee and reading the Word. And you can't see him, but my dog is right here at my feet, snoozing away on his fluffy dog bed. Good morning, Lori Chase. Dana Krieshock, good morning. So we are in Psalm 27 this morning. Daryl and Suzanne, I see you. Good morning. Karen Faust, welcome. Barbara Whitney, good morning to you. Psalm 27. And I loved reading this psalm. It actually is kind of a reflection of yesterday's psalm in the sense that David is encamped around by enemies and he's trying to seek the shelter of the Lord. But for me, where it was meaningful to me this morning, where I chose to meditate, was on David's words in, let's see, I'll read it for you, in verse 4 and 5. And I loved this imagery where David goes to the tabernacle. Remember, the temple hasn't been built yet. And so there's this tent of meeting, the tabernacle, and David goes to inquire of the Lord and to seek his face, with regard to all of these, he's being encamped by enemies around him. So obviously I don't think that means around Jerusalem, but there are probably enemies on the borders of Israel, and he's trying to figure out how best to handle that, and he's seeking the Lord. And here's his words in verse 5, beginning with verse 4, actually. One thing I have asked of the Lord, that I will seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord and to inquire in his temple. I love those words. And though I think that I'll explain a little bit what I think David means by it, but I also will interject what I was comforted by today. I think David is saying, he's in this space, inquiring of the Lord, and he's in the presence of God, and he's looking around, and I'm projecting this on David, right? He's looking around and saying, you know what? This is awfully nice. Can I just stay here? Can I just stay in the presence of God in the shelter of this tent forever, all my days? That's what I'm going to seek. I'm going to seek the Lord, and in fact, I wish I could just stay here all the days of my life, just in the presence of God, because here I feel safe. Here I feel peace. Here I feel the protection of God in this sacred space. And for me, this place right here where I'm sitting and where I dwell every single morning when I get up is my sacred space. That's the imagery that was conjured up for me when I read this psalm. It's one of my favorite places in all the world to get up in the silence and stillness, drink my coffee, and read and pray. Read the Bible and pray. I've entered into the tent. I've entered into God's presence, and I was reflecting on this and journaling about this morning. It's like, you know what? I could just stay here all the days of my life. Why ever leave this place? You know, I don't have to go out there. There are bad people out there. You know, there's an enemy encamped on my border. I don't want to go back out there. I'll just stay here. Wouldn't that be great? And he goes on to say in verse 5, and I'll read this. And again, you'll have to indulge me here as I continue this imagery. Verse 5, he says, "For he will hide me in his shelter in the day of trouble. He will conceal me under the cover of his tent. He will lift me high upon a rock." And as I was reading that, I'm thinking, you know, he will conceal me under the cover of his tent. I feel like a little kid in bed, and I'm afraid of what's under the bed or in the closet, right? Some of those common fears we have as little kids. And our solution is to pull the cover over our head, right? If I can't see what's going on outside of there, then I'm safe. I'm protected. You know, that person can't see me. I can't see them. So, you know, I'm great. That's the imagery that came to mind when I was thinking, when David was saying, you know, I love to be here. I'm going to be in this tent. God's concealing me under the cover of his tent. And in fact, when I'm out in the wild, I've often said I love to cowboy camp. That means you're sleeping right on the ground and out in the open. You could see the stars every time you wake up in the middle of the night and so on. But when you camp that way, you're also very vulnerable. And when I first started backpacking and camping that way, out in the middle of the wilderness, I was very aware that anything that walked by in the middle of the night could easily, you know, come right upon me sleeping there, and I felt very vulnerable. And it took a while for me to grow comfortable with the environment I was sleeping in, to be not on hyper alert all the time, that every little snap of every twig and every little rustle in the leaves just didn't jolt me awake, and I was on high alert. What is that? And what threat is there? And over time, I realized that, you know, there's a lot of sounds in the night in the forest and in the mountains, and I grew to enjoy those sounds. I'd wake up and hear them, and instead of being fearful, I would wonder, what is that? What's making that noise? And begin to imagine what it is, and knowing that it's not going to harm me. It's, you know, and I grew even to the point of, you know, I'm just accustomed to things. I know this is going to sound really strange, but have grown accustomed to things crawling on me in the night. I'm sleeping on the ground. I'm not in a tent. I'm not enclosed and capsuled, you know. And so once in a while, things crawl on you. And so you brush them off, you know, and it kind of does jolt you when it happens. But you grow accustomed to that. But initially, it was really hard for me to sleep out in the mountains without being in a tent. You know, there's almost this false sense of security. But David's imagery of, I want to be in God's tent under the shelter of his covering, that would feel very real. It's not a false sense of peace. I mean, God is the one governing the universe, and I'm in the shelter of his tent. I feel very safe, very secure. Why would I ever leave? He uses the imagery, he's put me high on a rock, this rock of refuge, and it makes me think of the image of being on a high rock in the middle of this, like on a coastline of an ocean. And you can see the waves crashing, this powerful surf crashing below you, but you're high up on a rock. That danger is down there. It's never going to get to you. You're way up there on a rock. My feet are secure, you know. It's not slippery at all. I'm just standing securely. That's the image that came to mind. And so why wouldn't any of us want to stay in that place all the days of our life? I mean, I get it. I think that David is reflecting in a way that all of us have tended to reflect on, especially when we are encountering days of trouble. And so I love this imagery. And for me, it's every single morning I find this refuge of God's shelter. I climb into God's tent. I enjoy the covering. pulling the covers over my head for a time. I enjoy this sensation of standing on a very tall rock, enjoying the presence of God. And I'm like, yeah, I'd love to be here all the days of my life. And I do have this wonderful opportunity every morning to do this. And throughout the day, as I kind of retreat and pray and read and sense God's presence and so on. But the reality is, David has to emerge from the tent. He has to go out and lead. He has to lead his people. He has to provide solutions. He has to fight the enemy. He has to do all of these things. And he understands this. He's not living in a fantasy world where he knows he can stay in the tent 24 hours a day and never emerge. He knows he has to emerge. He knows he has to go out. And he makes this transition. I'm just going to read a couple other verses. In verse 11, he says, "Teach me your way, O God, O Lord, and lead me on a level path because of my enemies." So I think he's contemplating going back out of the tent, and he's going to face life. And here's his statement in verse 13. "I believe." Now, this is a statement of faith, and this is a statement of faith we all have to make every single day that we emerge from our little personal tent of meeting with God. We say, "I believe that I shall look upon the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living." And so as I emerge, I know that God is going to go with me. He's going to go before me. He's beside me. He's going to be encompassed all around me as I live my life out among the living. And for David, I think there's a very real sense in which he's saying, I don't believe I'm going to die when I go into battle. I believe God's going to protect me. I believe God's with me. He's going to deliver me from my enemy. And I'm going to remain among the land of the living. I think that's very real what he's saying. But in my mind, I think, yeah, I got to get out of the tent every morning and get out there and lead and interact with people and deal with life's issues and conflicts and joys and sorrows among the living. I'm out there living life, and I believe that the goodness of God will be present with me out there in the land of the living. And I do this every single day. I have to emerge from the tent every morning and go and live life just like everybody. But I believe, just as David says, I'm just believing by faith that God is with me. His goodness will be there with me in the land of the living. And the very final verse, and I'll just conclude with this, says this: "Wait for the Lord. Be strong. Let your heart take courage. Wait for the Lord." And so today, may your heart take courage. As we wait on the Lord every single day and seek his face and follow his urgings by his Spirit, by his word, take courage. Be strong as we live our life in the land of the living, and knowing that the goodness of God continues to surround us throughout the day. Lord bless you today, and we'll see you again tomorrow morning.